I want you to picture someone. Maybe it's a guy you work with. Let's call him David. David is, well, he's perfect.
Oh, the perfect ones are always the most interesting.
Right. He's always dressed impeccably. He's got that firm handshake. He maintains just the right amount of eye contact. He's charming, tells great stories at the water cooler. And the boss absolutely loves him.
He never seems stressed, I'm guessing.
Never seems rattled at all. He is, by all accounts, just the model of mental health.
Okay, I'm with you.
But then imagine you're at a company dinner. A waiter accidentally spills a full glass of red wine on David's very expensive, very white shirt.
Oof. The ultimate test.
And for just a microsecond, the mask slips. David doesn't yell. He doesn't get red in the face. He looks at the waiter with eyes that are completely dead.
Ah, there it is.
There's no anger. There's no frustration. There's just a total absence of humanity. It's like looking into the eyes of a shark.
And then it's gone.
Gone. Snap. The smile is back. He's making a joke about the dry cleaning bill, and everyone laughs, relieved. But you saw it. You saw the nothingness.
That is a visceral way to open.
Yeah.
And that nothingness, that absolute void, that is exactly what we are here to unpack today.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring a topic that I think it scares people more than ghosts or goblins because it's real and it's walking among us. We are talking about psychopathy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, going through the research you sent over this massive stack of articles in the main Wikipedia deep dive, I realized I have been using that word wrong my entire life.
You and pretty much everyone else. It's one of those words that has been completely hijacked by pop culture.
Oh, completely.
We say, oh, my ex is a total psycho, or that driver is a psychopath. We usually just mean they're, erratic or angry or just difficult.
Exactly. Or we picture the Hollywood version. We picture Hannibal Lecter wearing a face mask or Patrick Bateman chasing people with a chainsaw in American Psycho. We think of these monsters hiding in the dark.
And that's the danger. Because while those characters are iconic, they focus almost exclusively on the extreme violence. The reality of psychopathy, the clinical reality, is so much more subtle.
And more unsettling, I think.
Far more unsettling, in my opinion. We aren't necessarily talking about the guy with the chainsaw. We're talking about a specific personality construct that might be your surgeon, your CEO, or that perfect guy David you just described.
That's what I want to get to the bottom of, the mask of sanity. I saw this phrase popping up repeatedly in the notes. It comes from Hervey Cleckley, right? Back in the 40s.
1841, yes. Hervey Cleckley wrote a seminal book titled The Mask of Sanity. It basically, it completely revolutionized how we see this condition.
How so? What was the thinking before him?
Well, before Cleckley, people often confuse psychopathy with insanity or psychosis, madness.
The idea that they were crazy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Cleckley made this startling observation. He was treating patients who weren't crazy in the traditional sense. They weren't hearing voices. They weren't hallucinating. They weren't, anxious or depressed.
So they seemed normal.
Better than normal.
Yeah.
He described how they often appeared to be the most sane people in the hospital.
Wow.
They were articulate, intelligent, totally logical. But Cleckley realized that this sanity was a thin veneer. It was a mask. Underneath, there was a fundamental hollowness, a profound poverty of emotion.
So they could mimic human emotion.
Perfectly.
They could say the right things, but they couldn't actually feel them.
That's the core of it. There was a quote in the research that I think you flagged, and it gave me chills too. It said, they know the words, but not the music.
Yes, that one. It's the perfect analogy.
It really is. Imagine trying to explain the feeling of being moved by a beautiful piece of music, a symphony, to someone who is completely tone deaf.
They could read the sheet music.
They could analyze it perfectly. They can say, yes, a C sharp followed by an E flat, that's a minor third. They understand the mechanics, but they don't get the goosebumps. They don't feel that swell of emotion in their chest.
And that is the psychopath with, say, love.
Or guilt, or remorse, or empathy. They know I love you is a phrase you say to get someone to stay, or to get sex, or to get money. They know the words, they just don't hear the music.
So our mission today is to figure out how that machine works. We want to strip away the slang and look at the actual mechanics. Is it genetic? Is it something that happens to you as a kid?
And the big paradox, the one that I think fascinates everyone.
The one I'm obsessed with. Why do some of these people become serial killers while others become wildly successful business leaders?
It is the ultimate paradox of the trait. And to get there, we have to start by clearing up the biggest confusion of all. The difference between psycho, as in psychotic, and psychopath.
I feel like I've used these interchangeably at parties and probably embarrassed myself more than once.
You're not alone. But the distinction is absolutely crucial. Psychosis, or being psychotic, is a break from reality.
Okay.
That is what you see in something like schizophrenia, for example. If you are psychotic, you might have delusions. You might believe the government is beaming thoughts into your head through the toaster.
Right.
You might hear voices telling you to do things. You are suffering because your mind has separated from the real world.
Okay, so the psychotic person thinks the toaster is talking to them.
Right. The psychopath, on the other hand, knows the toaster is just a toaster. They are grounded firmly in reality. They are rational. They are logical. Often they are colder and more rational than you or I because they aren't clouded by all that messy emotion.
So the psychotic person is mad in the classic sense. The psychopath is what? Bad.
That's the simplified way to look at it, I suppose. The psychotic person is often a victim of their own broken mind. They are suffering. The word pathos means suffering, after all. But the psychopath, they don't suffer. They cause suffering.
They're the engine of chaos.
Exactly. For everyone else, while they remain perfectly calm at the center of the storm.
So if I suspect my neighbor is a psychopath, I can't just look up psychopathy in the big book of mental disorders, right? I tried to find it in the notes about the DSM, a Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and it's not there.
It's not. And this drives criminologists and many forensic psychologists absolutely crazy.
Why not? It seems like such a well-known concept.
It is, but the DSM, for various reasons, doesn't have a standalone diagnosis called psychopathy. The closest thing you'll find is something called antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD.
But they aren't the same thing.
They overlap like a Venn diagram, but they are absolutely not synonyms. ASPD is very, very behavior-based. It's focused on what you do.
Like a checklist of bad actions.
A total checklist of trouble. If you look at the criteria for ASPD, it's things like, do you consistently break laws? Do you lie repeatedly? Are you impulsive? Do you get into physical fights? Do you show a reckless disregard for the safety of others?
Okay, so it's basically the criminality disorder.
Roughly, yes. It's very good at catching the people who act out, who end up in the criminal justice system. But here is the catch, and it's a big one.
Go on.
You can be a psychopath and never get arrested. You can be a psychopath and never get into a fist fight. You might destroy people psychologically, or bankrupt a company, or emotionally scar your children for life.
But you do it within the letter of the law.
Or just smart enough to not get caught. Those people, the so-called successful psychopaths, would likely not get diagnosed with ASPD because they aren't antisocial in that crude legal sense.
They're too smart for that.
Or too controlled. So researchers, especially in the forensic world, knew they needed a better tool. They needed a way to measure the personality, not just the rap sheet.
The stuff going on underneath the surface.
The hollowness, the lack of empathy. And that brings us to the gold standard, the PCL-R.
The Psychopathy Checklist Revised. This was developed by Dr. Robert Hare. I want to spend some time here because I feel like this is where we really see the ingredients of the mask. It's a scoring system, right?
It is. It's a 20-item checklist. For each of those 20 items, a trained clinician, and they have to be trained, reviews a person's entire life history. Interviews, police records, family interviews, everything.
This isn't a quiz you take online?
Absolutely not. And for each item, the clinician gives a score. 0 means doesn't apply at all. 1 means applies somewhat. And 2 means that's a perfect description of this person.
And the max score is 40, a perfect 2 on all 20 items.
Max is 40, yes.
Okay, let's play a game. I want to really understand these traits. I'm going to invent a character. Let's call him Gary. Gary is a guy I used to know loosely based on a real person, but I won't name names.
I like it. Let's do it.
I'm going to describe Gary, and you tell me how we'd score him on some of these key PCL-R items.
All right, let's diagnose Gary. Fire away.
Okay, item 1. Glibness and superficial charm. Gary was the life of the party. He always had a funny story. He could talk to anyone about anything, but it always felt a little rehearsed, like he was performing a script he'd memorized. And if you tried to get deep with him, ask him about his feelings, he'd just deflect with a joke and that perfect, dazzling smile.
That's a classic 2 points. That's the mask.
Yeah.
It's the ability to be entertaining and engaging, but it's all on a very surface level. It's described as slick, but without any real warmth or substance behind it.
Slick is the perfect word. Okay, 2 points for Gary. Next item. Grandiose sense of self-worth. Gary didn't just think he was smart. He thought he was a god among men. He'd say things like, I'm the only one in this company who actually has a brain. He genuinely believed rules were for little people, not for him.
Another solid 2. This isn't just confidence. Confidence is, I think I can do this job well. Grandiosity is, I am inherently superior to you, and the laws of physics, society, and basic decency shouldn't apply to me.
He's racking up the points. What about pathological lying? Gary lied about everything. He lied about where he went to college. He lied about how much money he made. He even lied about what he had for lunch for no reason.
And that's the key, for no reason. That's why it's pathological.
Yeah.
A normal person lies to avoid trouble or to spare someone's feelings. No, honey, those jeans don't make you look fat.
A social lubricant.
Right. A psychopath lies for the thrill of it, or just to control the narrative.
Yeah.
There's a term for it. Duping delight. They get a little kick, a little jolt of pleasure out of successfully tricking you.
Duping delight. That is incredibly creepy. Okay, here's a big one. Lack of remorse or guilt. Gary cheated on his wife, got caught. And when she was crying, screaming, his reaction wasn't, I'm so sorry. It was, why are you making such a big deal out of this? You're being hysterical.
Quintessential, too. It's the externalization of blame. I didn't hurt you. Your reaction is the problem. There is no internal mechanism that says, I caused another human being pain and that makes me feel bad. That entire circuit is missing.
So if Gary keeps going like this across all 20 items, getting 2s on cunning, manipulative, parasitic lifestyle, impulsivity, callousness.
If he scores above a 30, that's the cutoff in the US and Canada, he is clinically labeled a psychopath. The UK is a bit more conservative. They use a cutoff of 25.
A 30. To give you some context, what would an average person score?
The average person walking down the street scores a 4 or a 5, maybe?
A 4. I feel like I'd score a 4 just on a Monday morning when I haven't had coffee yet.
We all have traits, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're a little impulsive sometimes, that's a 1. Maybe you were a bit irresponsible in your 20s, that's another 1. But you are not hitting 30 unless you have a profound and pervasive deficit in your personality structure.
Okay, what about a criminal? A non-psychopathic criminal?
Great question. Your average violent prisoner, a guy in jail for assault or robbery, scores about a 22.
Wait, so a guy in prison for beating someone up is a 22, but a psychopath is a 30.
Exactly. The psychopath is in a completely different league. They are the apex predators of the prison yard.
That puts it in perspective. There was another framework in the notes that I found a bit easier to visualize than the 20-point checklist. The Triarchic Model.
Yes, from Christopher Patrick.
It describes psychopathy as a 3-legged stool. I found this really helpful.
It's a more modern way to look at it, and it helps explain why they can be so contradictory, why they can be so charming one minute and so cruel the next. It breaks it down into 3 core components.
Okay, break down the 3 legs for us.
Leg 1 is boldness. It's the part that actually looks kind of cool. It's low fear, high stress tolerance, social assertiveness.
The James Bond trait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or a fighter pilot, or an ER surgeon. They stay calm when the building is on fire. We admire this trait.
So boldness on its own isn't bad. In fact, it's often a leadership trait.
It is. We vote for boldness. We promote boldness. But then you add leg 2, disinhibition,
Which is?
which is poor impulse control.
Yeah.
The inability to plan for the long term. A constant demand for immediate gratification. It's the toddler brain. I want it, and I want it now.
So you have a fearless guy who acts like a toddler. That's already a bad combo.
A very bad combo. And then you add leg 3, which is the darkest leg of the stool. Meanness.
That's a very blunt term for a scientific model.
It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's an act of cruelty, a lack of empathy, a willingness to exploit others, to use them as objects to build yourself up.
So if you mix those 3 ingredients, a fearless, impulsive person who enjoys cruelty.
You get the perfect predator. Boldness means they aren't afraid to hunt you. Meanness means they don't care if they hurt you. And disinhibition means they're going to strike the moment they see an opportunity without thinking about the consequences.
That is a terrifying cocktail. But before we leave the definition phase, I have to ask the question that I know listeners are screaming at their speakers right now. Psychopath versus sociopath. Is there a difference, or is it just semantics?
It's a bit of a debate in the field, to be honest. Some researchers use them interchangeably. But for those who do make a distinction, like Robert Hare, the general consensus is born versus made.
Okay, elaborate on that. Nature versus nurture.
Exactly. Leading researchers tend to view psychopathy as a nature problem. You were born with a wiring. It's genetic, it's biological. We'll talk about the brain scans in a minute, but the hardware is fundamentally different from the start.
So the psychopath arrives that way. The blueprint is there from birth.
Roughly, yes. The potential is there. Sociopathy, on the other hand, is often seen as a result of nurture. It's environmental.
So you're not born a sociopath, you become one.
That's the idea. Maybe you grew up in a terrible abusive home or a war-torn neighborhood, or you were initiated into a gang. You learned to be antisocial to survive. Your environment beat the empathy out of you.
So a sociopath might have a conscience, it's just buried or broken.
Or it's selective. A sociopath might rob a bank and shoot a guard, but they would never ever rat out their friends. They might have a deep loyalty to their gang or their family. They have a code.
It's a twisted code, but it's there.
It's there. A psychopath. They have no code. They have no loyalty to anyone but themselves. They would throw their own mother under a bus if it got them better concert tickets, and they'd do it without a second thought.
That distinction, the nature aspect of psychopathy, really sets us up for the next section. Because if they're born this way, if the hardware is different, that means we should be able to see it.
We should.
We should be able to look under the hood and see the broken parts.
And we can. This is where the science gets really, really interesting and, frankly, a little scary.
Let's talk about that biology, the fearless biology. There was an experiment mentioned in the text involving electric shocks that I found just stunning.
The countdown experiment. It's a classic, pioneered by a researcher named Lacan. So imagine I bring you into a lab. I hook you up to sensors that measure your skin conductance, basically a fancy way of saying how much your palms are sweating.
I'm already nervous just thinking about it.
Exactly, and your sweat glands show it. I tell you, in 10 seconds, I'm going to give you a painful but not harmful electric shock. And I start a clock on a big screen. 10, 9, 8. What is your body doing?
My heart is pounding, I'm sweating, I'm clenching my teeth, I'm bracing for impact. My whole body is screaming, danger!
That's the anticipatory anxiety. Your brain is predicting pain and flooding your system with stress hormones to prepare. Now, we bring in a high-scoring psychopath. We tell them the same thing. 10, 9, 8.
Lead, flatline.
The needle on the skin conductance machine barely moves. No sweat, no heart rate spike.
But they know it's coming. They understand the words.
Oh, perfectly. They know the shock is coming. They know it will hurt. But their body simply does not produce the fear response. It's like the message gets lost in the mail.
That's alien. It's hard to even comprehend.
Think about what that means for how we learn. How did you learn not to steal cookies from the cookie jar when you were a kid?
Well, my mom would catch me and yell, or I'd get a timeout. And I'd feel that awful pit in my stomach, that shame, that fear of getting in trouble again.
Exactly. We learn through aversive conditioning. We associate the bad behavior with the bad feeling of fear or shame or anxiety. But if you are physically incapable of feeling that fear,
Punishments don't work.
they don't land. The threat of prison, it doesn't register emotionally. The threat of your wife leaving you, just information, not a gut punch. The threat of getting fired, an inconvenience.
So the entire teaching mechanism of society is broken for them.
Completely. And it's broken because of specific structures in the brain. The biggest culprit is a little almond-shaped structure deep in the temporal lobe, the amygdala.
The amygdala. I always think of that as the brain's panic button.
It's the security guard. It's constantly scanning the environment for threats. Is that a snake? Is that an angry face? Is that a sad face that I caused? In psychopaths, the amygdala is often physically smaller. Some studies show up to 18% smaller and significantly less active, especially in response to fearful or sad expressions.
18% is a huge chunk of brain real estate to be missing or underperforming.
It is a massive deficit.
Yeah.
So the security guard is asleep on the job. But it's not just the guard. It's the communication lines between the different departments of the brain.
The wiring.
Yes. There's a specific tract of white matter called the uncinate fasciculus. It's a mouthful, but think of it as the high-speed fiber optic cable connecting two critical parts of the brain.
Which two parts?
It connects the amygdala, which we said is the emotion and fear center, to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, or the VMPFC.
And what does the VMPFC do?
That's the manager. That's the CEO of the brain. It's the part right behind your forehead that makes decisions, considers consequences, processes guilt, and applies moral reasoning.
Okay, so security guard sees a threat, calls the manager to decide what to do.
That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
The security guard, amygdala, sees a sad face on a person you just insulted. It sends an urgent signal down that fiber optic cable to the manager, VMPFC, and the manager says, "Oh, I caused that person pain. That violates our moral code. I should apologize and feel guilt."
But in a psychopath,
The cable is frayed. Studies on the uncinate fasciculus in psychopaths show it's disorganized, degraded. The signal just doesn't get through with any clarity.
I love that analogy. It's like a dropped call. The manager is making decisions. I'm going to steal that person's wallet. And the security guard is in the basement screaming, bad idea, moral violation, they'll be sad. But the line is dead. The manager never gets the memo.
Precisely. The manager is operating on pure, cold, unadulterated logic and self-interest, completely unburdened by emotional feedback. This explains the crucial difference between cognitive empathy and emotional empathy.
Break that down for us. I think people often use empathy as one single thing.
They're very different. Cognitive empathy is knowing what someone feels. It's the ability to read social cues. I see your brow is furrowed and your fists are clenched. I deduce that you are angry.
It's an intellectual exercise.
Exactly. And so psychopaths are often brilliant at this. They use it to manipulate you. They are expert people readers. They know exactly what to say to make you trust them or fear them or pity them.
They know the password to get into your head.
But emotional empathy, that's feeling what you feel. It's that mirror neuron response where if I see you smash your thumb with a hammer, I physically wince in pain with you. Psychopaths don't wince. They watch you cry with the same emotional detachment as watching paint dry. It's just data to them.
It's the difference between reading a manual on how pain works and actually getting punched in the face.
A perfect way to put it. And it's not just the brain structure. It's the biochemical cocktail sloshing around inside.
The hormones and neurotransmitters.
Yes. They often show high levels of testosterone, which is linked to approach behavior and reward sensitivity. They also have low levels of cortisol, the stress hormone.
So they're always seeking rewards and never feel stress.
And you add in dysregulation of serotonin, which is linked to impulsivity, and you have a perfect storm. High drive, high impulsivity, no fear, no stress. It creates a biological machine built for aggressive, dominant behavior without any of the natural breaks that fear or guilt provide.
Which brings us back to the ultimate nature-nurture question. Because if you have this brain, this small amygdala, this frayed wiring, this hormonal cocktail, are you doomed? Are you destined to be a monster from day one?
That is the million-dollar question. And for a long time, the answer was thought to be a very pessimistic yes. We see that the core, callous, unemotional traits are highly heritable, over 60% in some studies.
More than 60%, that's huge.
It's one of the more heritable psychological traits. We also hear a lot about the MAOA enzyme, the so-called warrior gene.
Right, I've seen that in headlines.
It's a gene involved in breaking down neurotransmitters like serotonin. If you have the low-activity version of this gene, you're predisposed to be more aggressive when provoked.
So if I get a 23 psychonym result that says I have the warrior gene, am I a psychopath?
No. And this is the most hopeful part of the research, and it's a huge but. Genes are the loaded gun, but the environment is what pulls the trigger.
Okay.
There's a famous neuroscientist, Dr. James Fallon. He was studying the brain scans of convicted serial killers. He had a whole stack of them on his desk, and he knew what this psychopathic brain looked like. A dark, inactive amygdala and VMPFC.
He was an expert in seeing the pattern.
Right. And as a control for his study, he had scanned himself and his entire family. One day, he's looking through a pile of scans, and he finds one that looks clearly, terrifyingly psychopathic. A textbook case.
And whose scan was it?
It was his own.
No way. You're kidding.
It's a true story. He looked at his own brain and realized he had the biology of a psychopath. He later got his genes tested. He had the high-risk warrior gene and a bunch of other markers for violence and aggression.
Well, he's not a killer.
No. He's a successful, happily married scientist with kids. So he asked himself, why am I not in prison?
How did he answer that?
Because he had an incredibly loving, supportive, and stable childhood. His parents nurtured him. He was never abused. He was raised in a way that taught him to channel those traits. The boldness, the lack of fear, the intense focus into pro-social things like science and ambition rather than violence and manipulation.
So if you take that same brain, James Fallon's brain, and you put it in a chaotic, abusive, neglectful home.
Then you have a disaster. A ticking time bomb. The research shows a very strong correlation. Physical abuse and neglect in childhood correlates with the disinhibition leg of the stool, the impulsivity. Sexual abuse correlates with the meanness leg, the cruelty.
It's a tragedy. You take a brain that is already struggling to process emotion and you subject it to trauma that forces it to shut down emotion even further just to survive.
Just pouring gasoline on a fire.
This leads to the early warning signs. We hear about the classic triad: bedwetting, fire starting.
The McDonald triad: bedwetting past a certain age, arson, and cruelty to animals.
The animal cruelty thing is the one that always gets me. It feels like such a pure indicator of something wrong.
It's the reddest of red flags. A normal child might pull a cat's tail and get scratched, and they learn. They feel scared, they feel bad. If a child tortures or kills a small animal and feels no remorse, or even feels a sense of power or curiosity, that is a profound sign that the empathy circuit is not firing.
In the DSM-5, for kids, it's called conduct disorder with callous unemotional traits.
Exactly. They added that specifier, the callous unemotional part, to distinguish these kids from regular troublemakers. These are the kids who lack guilt, who have a shallow affect, who use others for their own ends.
But parents listening shouldn't panic if their toddler bites a friend, right?
No. Good grief, no. Toddlers are natural sociopaths. They haven't developed empathy yet. Their prefrontal cortex is still under construction. We're talking about older children and a persistent, pervasive pattern of cruelty and lack of connection.
And even then, there is hope.
There is. Brains are plastic, especially when you're young. One longitudinal study tracked high-risk 13-year-olds who scored high on these traits. By age 24, less than a third of them were still classified as psychopathic.
So 2/3 grew out of it.
Or learned to manage it. They matured, their frontal lobes came online, they found a different path. So biology isn't destiny.
Not always.
But for some, it is.
And let's talk about the ones who don't grow out of it. They become adults. And they don't all become criminals. In fact, a lot of them put on a suit and tie and get a corner office. Section 4, the corporate psychopath.
Ah, yes. The boardroom predator, the snakes in suits.
The stats here just blew my mind. In the general population, the rate of psychopathy is about 1%, 1 in 100 people.
Which is already a lot more than people think.
It is. But in senior management positions, CEOs, executives.
It shoots way up. The most cited studies put it at 3% to 4%, but some researchers who study high-stakes fields like finance or politics think it could be much, much higher.
So you are potentially 4 times more likely to find a psychopath in the C-suite than in the mailroom. Why? What is it about that environment that attracts them or helps them succeed?
Think about the typical job description of a CEO, especially during a crisis. You need someone who can make hard decisions. You need someone who can fire 5,000 people to save the stock price and then go home and sleep like a baby.
You need someone with low emotional empathy.
You need someone with that boldness trait. You need someone who doesn't feel the stress of the shareholders yelling at them. The core psychopathic traits, fearlessness, dominance, charisma, coolness under pressure, they perfectly mimic our cultural image of a strong leader.
We mistake their lack of anxiety for strength.
We do, time and time again. We see their ruthlessness and call it decisive. We see their charm and call it visionary.
It's the kiss-up, kick-down dynamic that I read about.
That is their signature move. I want you to imagine a big meeting. A corporate psychopath, let's call him Boss X, is in a room with his superiors, the board of directors. He is charming, he's visionary, he's promising the moon. He is mirroring exactly what they want to hear. He's their golden boy.
The mask is firmly on.
Bolted on. But the moment the superiors leave, and it's just Boss X and his team of subordinates, the mask drops. He's bullying. He's taking credit for their work. He's pitting them against each other, creating chaos just for fun, just to watch the show.
To maintain control.
Exactly. There was a fascinating study from the University of Notre Dame that found that people with high psychopathic traits actually thrive under abusive supervision.
What does that even mean? They like being yelled at.
It means that in a toxic, shouting, high-pressure culture, normal people crumble. They get stressed, their performance suffers, they burn out, they quit. The psychopath, they love it.
It's their natural habitat.
It's their playground. They don't get their feelings hurt by an abusive boss. They see the chaos as a ladder. So in a truly toxic company, over time, the psychopaths are the only ones left standing. They're the last ones to turn out the lights.
They're like the cockroaches of the corporate world. They can survive the nuclear fallout that kills everyone else.
And then they rise to the top. But the cost to the company is massive. They are organizational parasites. They might boost profits in the short term by cutting ethical corners or slashing staff, but they rot the culture from the inside out. Fraud increases. Employee turnover skyrockets.
It's the Enron scenario.
Precisely. A group of very smart, very charming guys at the top who didn't care who got hurt as long as the stock number went up.
But not every psychopath is satisfied with just destroying a company. Some destroy lives, physically. We have to talk about the link to violence. We mentioned earlier that not all psychopaths are violent, but when they are, it's different.
It is profoundly different. Criminologists make a vital distinction between reactive aggression and instrumental aggression.
Reactive is the bar fight, right? Hot-blooded.
Right. You spill my drink, I feel disrespected, my emotions flare up, and I punch you. That's hot aggression. It's an emotional outburst. Psychopaths can certainly do this, but so can lots of normal people with a temper.
But instrumental aggression.
That is cold.
Yeah?
That is predatory. I'm not hitting you because I'm angry. I'm hitting you because you have something I want. Maybe it's your wallet. Maybe it's your car. Maybe it's just the feeling of power from seeing you in pain. Violence is a tool. It's a screwdriver you use to get a job done.
And the stat here was staggering. Something like 93% of homicides committed by psychopaths were instrumental.
93.3% to be exact, compared to less than half, 48.4% for non-psychopathic murderers. That single statistic chills me to the bone every time I read it.
Because it means it was planned.
It was planned. It was goal-oriented.
Yeah.
And it was executed without a raised heart rate. It's the difference between a crime of passion and an assassination.
And this creates a complete nightmare for the legal system, because if you catch them and you put them in prison, they often don't stay there.
The infamous revolving door. This is a paradox that frustrates every parole board member in the country.
Yeah.
The data is crystal clear. Psychopaths are significantly more likely to reoffend and reoffend violently than other criminals. They are the highest risk category.
Okay, so they're the most dangerous.
By far.
Yeah.
But they are 2.5 times more likely to be granted parole than other inmates.
That makes absolutely no sense. If they are the most dangerous, why on earth are we letting them out?
Because of the mask. Imagine you're on the parole board. A normal prisoner comes in. They might be sullen. They might be anxious, avoid eye contact because they're ashamed. They might struggle to articulate their remorse. To the board, they look shifty or unreformed.
And then the psychopath comes in.
The psychopath puts on an Oscar-worthy performance.
I've learned so much during my time here, Your Honor. I've found God. I see the error of my ways. I want to dedicate my life to helping youth avoid the mistakes I made.
They say everything the board wants to hear.
Perfectly. They make perfect eye contact. They seem sincere. They are charming. They've manipulated the prison psychologist. They have charmed the guards. They hack the interview.
So the system designed to detect risk is the most vulnerable to their specific brand of manipulation.
It's their superpower. And then they get out and do it all again. This brings up a deep philosophical question. The Damasio experiment you mentioned, with the airplane scenario. Can we walk through that?
This is a variation of the famous trolley problem. Dr. Antonio Damasio studied patients with damage to that VMPFC area, the manager part of the brain, the same area that's dysfunctional in psychopaths.
So these are people with acquired sociopathy from a brain injury.
Exactly. He gave him a scenario. A passenger plane has been hijacked. It's heading for a major city. If you do nothing, thousands will die. Your only option is to shoot it down. If you shoot it down, you will kill the 200 innocent passengers on board, but you will save the city.
It's the ultimate utilitarian choice. The cold math says shoot the plane to save more lives.
Right. And most people, when posed this dilemma, will eventually land on that answer. But for a normal person, it's an agonizing decision. The thought of actively killing 200 innocent people creates a visceral, painful, emotional reaction. It takes them time to decide. They sweat. They feel awful.
And the patients with the brain damage.
Immediate answer, shoot it down.
No hesitation. No anguish.
None. They look at the research for like, why is this a hard question? To them, it's just math. 200 is less than 2,000. Next problem.
And that is the crux of the legal issue. If their brain physically cannot process the anguish of the decision, are they fully responsible? If I was colorblind and I ran a red light because I couldn't see the color, you'd say, well, his eyes don't work. If a psychopath has a morally blind brain, can we truly blame them?
The law, as it stands, says yes. Emphatically yes.
Why?
Because they know the rules. They are not psychotic. They understand that society says murder is wrong. They just don't care.
Right.
And legal systems, by and large, have decided that indifference isn't a valid excuse. So we hold them responsible. But it's an uncomfortable reality to sit with.
So if we lock them up, can we fix them? Is there a cure for this?
This is, I think, the bleakest part of the entire deep dive. The short answer is no. And worse, trying to fix them with traditional methods can make things much, much worse.
Oh, I thought therapy was good for everyone.
Therapy relies on two fundamental things. One, you have to believe you have a problem. And two, you have to have a desire to change. Psychopaths don't think they have a problem. They think we are the ones with the problem.
They think we're weak for having feelings.
Exactly. They see themselves as evolved, as superior beings unburdened by useless emotions like guilt or love. They have zero personal distress, so why would they change?
So they just sit there in the therapy session and roll their eyes.
Worse, they take notes. There's a well-documented phenomenon called the training risk, or the finishing school effect.
Finishing school? Like for etiquette and manners?
Exactly. If you put a psychopath in group therapy, they don't engage with the material to get better. They sit back and watch other people. They listen intently as vulnerable inmates describe their pain, their trauma, their moments of regret.
They're gathering data.
They're building a library of emotional scripts. They think, aha, So when your mother dies, your voice is supposed to crack like that, and you're supposed to look down at your hands. Interesting. They learn the vocabulary of emotion. They learn to mimic empathy better.
My God.
They come out of therapy more dangerous than when they went in because now they have a better disguise. They are more effective manipulators.
That is straight out of a horror movie. You send them to a doctor to get better, and they come out a better predator.
Which is why most modern treatment programs for psychopaths have abandoned empathy training entirely. It just doesn't stick.
So what do? Just lock them away forever and throw away the key?
If they are violent, in many cases, yes, that's the only safe option. But for management, or for those who aren't violent, you have to appeal to the only thing they understand: self-interest.
You don't try to make them care about others.
You don't say, don't hit Gary because it hurts him and makes him sad. You say, don't hit Gary because if you do, you lose your Xbox privileges for a month.
You make it a pure transaction.
Everything is a transaction to them. So you have to rig the game so that pro-social behavior, being good, is the most profitable and rewarding move for them personally.
Right.
It's cynical, but it's the only thing that seems to have even a modest effect.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on something we haven't mentioned. Gender. We've been saying he and him this whole time. Are there female psychopaths?
Absolutely. But they are harder to spot, and they are diagnosed much, much less frequently.
Why is that?
A few reasons. First, the PCL-R, that 20-item checklist, was largely developed and validated on male prison populations. It focuses heavily on things like physical violence, overt criminality, and a parasitic financial lifestyle.
So if the test is looking for a fistfight, it misses the poison in the teacup.
That's a perfect way to put it. Men with psychopathy tend to externalize. Their aggression is obvious: violence, theft, assault. Women with psychopathy tend to use more relational aggression.
Manipulation, gossip, rumors.
Destroying a reputation. Turning a family against each other. Gaslighting. A female psychopath might be the perfect mother on the outside who systematically destroys her child's self-esteem to keep them dependent and under control.
She might be the office manager who orchestrates a subtle campaign to get a rival fired without ever raising her voice.
Exactly. It's quieter, more insidious, but just as destructive. It's a different kind of mask, and we are only just starting to develop the tools to properly identify it.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered the brain, the genes, the corporate climbers, the unfixable nature of it, but I want to zoom out for the end here to the biggest question of all: evolution.
The why.
Yes. If these people are parasites, if they destroy trust, if they kill, if they ruin companies, why hasn't natural selection weeded them out? Humans are social animals. We survive by cooperation. Psychopaths are the definition of anti-cooperation. Why are they still here after thousands of years?
There are three main theories, and they're all fascinating. The first is called the frequency-dependent parasitic strategy.
That sounds like a biology paper title. Break it down.
It basically means this: being a parasite works, but only if there aren't too many of you. Imagine a large, trusting flock of sheep. If there is one wolf who learns to wear a sheepskin, he eats very well. He thrives.
But if half the flock is wolves in sheep's clothing,
The whole system collapses. There's no one left to exploit. The strategy fails. So nature keeps the number low, around that 1% mark, just enough to exploit the trusting majority, but not enough to destroy the entire species.
so they are biologically designed to be the minority, a successful but rare strategy.
Exactly. Theory 2 is that psychopathy is a spandrel.
The spandrel.
It's an architectural term. It's the triangular space between two arches. It wasn't designed on purpose. It's just an accidental byproduct of building the arches.
Okay, so how does that apply here?
The idea is that we as a species value certain traits. We need fearlessness. We need a high sex drive. We need intense focus. We want brave hunters and warriors to protect the tribe.
So evolution selects for those traits.
Right. But genetics is a messy roll of the dice. Sometimes you get a roll that has too much fearlessness, too much drive, and by accident, zero empathy. It's not that nature wanted to create a psychopath. It's that nature wanted a brave warrior and accidentally overshot the mark. A genetic typo.
An unfortunate byproduct of creating heroes. And the third theory?
This one is the most straightforward. Reproductive success. Let's be blunt. Psychopaths are often charming, confident, and promiscuous. They are masters of the short-term mating strategy. They are often sexually coercive. The result is they tend to have a lot of partners and a lot of children.
They spread their DNA far and wide.
And then they often abandon those children and partners, leaving others to raise them. It's a quantity over quality strategy. From a cold, selfish gene perspective, if you have 20 kids and abandon them all, you might still pass on more of your genes than the nice, stable guy who has 2 kids and raises them perfectly.
Evolution is cold.
It doesn't care about morality. It only cares about replication.
So this leaves me with a really uncomfortable thought to end on. We've spent this whole deep dive talking about how dangerous they are, the empty soul, the parasite, but think about that surgeon again.
The one saving your life on the operating table.
Yeah. If I'm on the table and something goes terribly wrong, my artery bursts.
Huh?
Do I want the surgeon who feels deep, overwhelming empathy? The one whose hands start to shake because he's so worried about me and my family?
Or do you want the cold, emotionless technician with ice in his veins?
I want the psychopath. I want the guy who just sees a plumbing problem and fixes the pipe. And if we are in a war, do we want a general who agonizes over every single soldier's life to the point of paralysis? Or do we want one who can make the cold, hard calculation to sacrifice one platoon to save the entire army and win the war?
This is the ultimate paradox.
Yeah.
We fear them individually. We don't want to date them. We don't want them as our neighbors or our bosses. But as a society, we might actually need a sprinkle of psychopathy to function. We need people who can do the dirty work without losing sleep.
So the question isn't just how do we stop them, it's where do we draw the line between a monster and a necessary evil?
It's a very fine line. And usually the only difference is whether they're on our side or not.
Well, on that comforting note, I'm going to go analyze my entire office with a new and frankly terrified perspective.
Just don't let them see you doing it.
Fair point. That's it for this deep dive. Stay curious, stay safe, and maybe keep an eye on David.
See you next time.